Welcome, welcome, welcome. Come on in, everyone that can. Make sure you come on in. And when you're coming in, want you make sure that you click the subscribe button. If you haven't done so already, make sure you do that as you're coming in. This is the beginning of another week, and I want to help empower you to live your best life now, to have the best opportunity for success, prosperity, happiness, and wholeness in your life. This is Maximum Life, Life More Abundantly, with yours truly, Michael Norman. So again, today I've got 3 words that are going to powerfully impact the rest of your life impact your life for the rest of your life. There it is. And if you adhere to these 3 words and watch how you use them, you're going to see either way, because they're that powerful. They can either work for your benefit or to your detriment, depending on how you're using them. So these are divine laws that I believe that can impact your life for the rest of your life in a very positive way. So if you would, just get your pad, pencil, your tablet, whatever you've got, and take some notes. I got a few things I'm going to share with you during this video, but if you want direct one-on-one coaching that helps propel and accelerate your growth, your expansion, whether you're an entrepreneur, businessman, husband, wife, father, church leader, or leader in general, get in touch with me in my website at michaelnormanministries.com. The information is in the description below. Make sure you take advantage of this opportunity to get this one-on-one counseling. I'm giving 4 decades of insight, 40 years of leadership, ministry, entrepreneurialism, and all of that. I'm going to help you break through whatever barriers, whatever market share challenges you're having. I'm going to help you with that. Go to the description below. The information is there at my website, michaelnormanministries.com. All right, so as I promised, 3 things that will radically impact your life for the rest of your life. And I want you to be aware of how important and imperative these 3 things are, because they will literally have a dynamic impact on your life. 3 words. I'm going to give you the 3 words, and then I'm going to break them down so that you understand the relevancy of each of these 3 words. These 3 words are: number 1, perception. Perception, how you perceive. Number 2, projection, because what you perceive is what you often project. And then the 3rd word is reception. Reception has to do with your perception, which again depends upon your perception. So it's perception, right? Projection, and then reception. So those 3 things work, and those 3 words work in conjunction with our life on a daily basis. Now, whether you know it or not, you're already proficient at it. You're already proficient at perception. You're already proficient at projection, and then you're already proficient at reception. You're going to receive based on those 2 preceding things. Your perception, your projection will affect your reception. Now, let's talk about perception. Your perception is your concept, how you perceive your environment, your experience in life. Now, I've said this before. I don't know if I did it on an earlier video, but I will tell you this, that number 1, there are laws. Let me back up and say, there are laws that operate in the world today. God has supernaturally established certain laws that are irrefutable and immutable. They cannot be denied, and they cannot be overridden. There are certain laws, such as the law of gravity. Now, I don't care how much knowledge you may have, unless you understand the law of lift, which helps you to supersede the law of gravity, but it's only even then until you either run out of fuel or you are in outer space. These are the only 2 ways that you can override the law of gravity. What goes up must come down. there's certain the law of diminishing returns. If you're spending more than you're making, eventually you won't have anything to spend. That's the law of diminishing returns. And so you have to be careful of how you respect these laws, because if you do not honor them, then you're going to reap the consequences of that disregard. Because again, these are laws. These are things that God has established. Now, whether you believe in him or not, the truth of the matter is, if you throw a pencil into the air, that pencil will not levitate. It's going to fall back down. Why? Because of the law of gravity. And just as the law of gravity works all day, every day, these principles of perception, projection, and reception, they work 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. You cannot get around it. It works all the time, every day. Now, projection is by and large based on our perception. Now, that's what you perceive in several ways, one of which, of course, is with your eyesight, the things that you see. We have 5 senses that we basically navigate through this earth with. Our sense of sight, our sense of smell, taste, and touch, and hearing. So these things are what helps us to navigate through life, in this physical realm. However, you must contend with the reality that there is more to life than meets the eye. In other words, a scientist has discovered the electromagnetic spectrum. The electromagnetic spectrum deals with the capacity of the human eye to perceive. That's why we call it perception, right? Because you can only perceive at your eyesight only perceives at a 0.0035%. 0.0035%. You can only see at that level. That when it comes to the entirety of the electromagnetic spectrum, we're actually only seeing less than 1% of what actually exists. Now, that might sound far-fetched to you, but think about it like this. If you are wondering why your dog Spike is just barking, barking, incessantly, and you're wondering what is going on, it's because your dog can perceive at a hearing level that exceeds human capabilities. In other words, Spike can hear what you cannot hear as a human. Because again, the dogs and most animals can perceive sound at a level that humans cannot. In this same sense, your perception is limited to 0.0035. So you're not seeing everything that's there. So it affects your perception. Now, here's where you get to decide based on the fact that I see things that are happening in this natural realm. I see my bills piling up. I see my relationships going bad, or I see things happening on my job. You can perceive those things from a natural, but guess what? Again, even though you see them with your natural eyes, you're only perceiving at a level of 0.035. So that means there's a whole lot that you're missing that you're not ever able to perceive with your eyes. There's a whole lot more that's there than meets the eyes. There's things that you're not perceiving that exist because you're only seeing at a level of 0.0035 according to the electromagnetic spectrum. So that means there is a lot of potential for error. That's a wide margin for error because you're only viewing at a 0.035%. That's less than 1% of the things that actually exist. So if you're only seeing a small percentage of it, and a very small percentage at that, then it stands to reason that there's a possibility that there's so much more than what you're seeing. So rather than being depressed about what you see, you can begin to imagine perhaps there's more that's working for me than what's working against me. Currently, all I can see is my bills are behind, or I can't get a job, or there's things that are happening on the job, things are happening in my life. These are the things I can perceive with my natural eyes. But I'm only viewing at a 0.0035%. So there's a strong possibility that there's more that's available potentially for you than meets the eye. But it is all about your perception that determines how much of what's actually in the unseen realm that you're going to be able to experience based on your perception. Now, the reason I say that is because your perception affects your projection. Now, here's how it works. You perceive a certain threat or a certain good thing, and then based on your perception about your experience, you begin to project that same perception. In other words, if you believe that everyone on the job is working against you, then guess what? You are going to begin to project this sense of suspicion of everyone on the job, which then again affects everyone on the job's perception of you. And so now, while you might be giving it 100% of your efforts, but because your perception is off, which affects the way you project, you create bad energy. You create negative energy in the workplace or in your business or in a marriage or in the relationship, because you're lingering with you're allowing this perception of negativity to linger in your mind, in your soul, in your spirit, to the extent that now you are projecting. Have you ever met an individual who, when they walk into the room, that they just literally light the room up, like they're the life of the party? Everybody looks forward to them coming. Why? Because they have a very positive projection. In most cases, they probably have a good positive perception about life, or life at the office, or whatever you're involved in. The point is, their perception is so positive that they exude positivity when they walk into the room. Now, if it's true in the positive, then guess what? It is true in the negative, in the opposite. Someone with a negative perception is going to have a correlating negative projection. They're going to project negative energy. So in the way that people who have a positive projection or positive perception that affects their projection, people love being around them. They enjoy when they're in their vicinity or in the environment. But those who have a negative perception, which ultimately ends up in a negative projection, it affects the environment. And everyone, you find out when that negative person shows up, everybody just kind of finds something else to do. If they're in a group huddle and having a conversation and that negative person shows up, all of a sudden the group starts to disband and everybody just goes back to their cubicle or go back to whatever they were doing before they congregated around the water fountain. Because again, a negative perception will impact your projection, and you'll exude negative energy to the extent that it is not inviting, it's not ingratiating. People will not want to be associated with people of negative energy. So now, if you want to change how you're impacting your environment, then you need to run an audit on your projection, which leads back to your perception. So have an honest conversation with yourself or with someone who you trust and ask them concerning their perception of you. Because guess what? Their perception of you affects their projection towards you, which ultimately impacts the way that they respond to you. So again, it all works hand in hand. It works hand in hand. Your perception, the way you perceive your environment, the way you perceive yourself. So that's why you have to maintain a positive self-image, because if you do not, then you're going to project low self-esteem, low self-worth. And generally speaking, if someone comes into your environment and your workplace or your office or a relationship with this negative energy, then they bring the whole thing down. It's like I was excited, I was motivated until, Jane Doe showed up or till John Doe showed up. He just brings the room down. And many of us, all of us, we've experienced people like that before. We've experienced people that we enjoy being around, whether they're family members or not. There's certain family members we just like, we prefer not, But it all goes back to those three items, those 3 points. Let me repeat them for you again. It is number 1, perception. Number 2, projection. And then number 3, reception. So if you want to break negative cycles in your life, negative thing that seems to be happening on a regular basis, no matter where you are, it seems like on the regular, you're attracting the same sort of people, the same sort of relationships, the same sort of scenarios seems to follow you wherever you go. Well, if you check these 3 items, your perception and your projection, it will change your reception. That's why changing geography is often not the answer to your problems and your challenges. Changing your city or your area code or your telephone number doesn't change the fact that you have an energy, a vibration, a frequency that attracts others who reside on that same vibratory frequency. I mean, it's scientifically proven that things that operate at a certain frequency only responds to things that are on that frequency. So if you have this negative vibration, this negative perception about yourself, about others, about your environment, then ultimately you're going to attract those same negative energies to your life, and you become your own self-saboteur. You can't blame others. I can't find a good man. I can't find a good woman. Maybe you need to check what frequency you are vibrating at. Check your attitude. Check your mental disposition. Check your overall attitude. As they say, your attitude will affect your altitude. It was true then and it's true now. So we use the terminology frequencies and vibratory levels and things of that nature. But the truth of the matter is it all boils down to your basic human attitude. So if you're having cycles in your life that you're experiencing, and perhaps it's showing up in your children's life as well, then you might want to check your perception, how you view the world, how you view your environment, how you view your potential to be successful. That's why it's important to say, speak, declare, affirm. Say that with your mouth, because the scripture says, again, that the power of death and life are in the tongue, and they that love it will eat the fruit thereof. In other words, you're literally going to eat your words, whether they be good or bad. Why? Because the earth, the way God's designed the earth, it is very impersonal. That's why maybe this is a crude example, but it'll get the point across. So in terms of the earth, the way that God has designed it, that it is impersonal. So in other words, if you work the principles that work in the earth, they will work for you. That's why you can take a mass murderer and maybe a minister of the gospel. 2 very different lifestyles. One is committed to criminality. The other is committed to piety, being, holy and righteous and justice. One is a criminal, one is a holy man. But if both of these people take a seed and plant it into the earth, guess what? They will both get a harvest. It's because the earth is impersonal. The way God has designed the atmosphere, the energy of the earth, it will give to whoever follows the rules and the principles of agriculture. So if you plant a seed and you water that seed, given all things being equal, you will get the same harvest. It doesn't matter if you're a criminal or if you are a priest. It doesn't matter. If you're a priest or a pedophile, it doesn't matter. The earth is impersonal. The way God has designed the earth is that if you walk by this, a certain perception, you're going to get the correlating reception. Why? Because you project that energy. And what you magnify, guess what? You magnetize. So if you exhume this negative energy, if you exhume this suspicious disposition that everyone is out to get you, you can't trust anyone, there are no more good men, there are no more good women, and you make this the mantra of your life, you are literally putting a lighthouse up saying, I'm over here, this way. When you constantly rehearse the idea that there are no good people in the earth, that everybody is a thief, there's someone always trying to scam, you're literally inviting them to your world. But again, this is the way that God has designed the earth. It's a law of attraction. I know you've probably heard, The Secret and that sort of thing, but it is literal truth. What you magnify, you will magnetize. That's the law of attraction as far as I'm concerned. It's the ability to impact your world with irrespective of the challenges that lie before you. Your ability to impact your world. These laws, they work 24/7, 365 days a year. Whether you acknowledge it or even know about them, whether you're completely ignorant concerning the laws, they are always operating. That's why you see the sun rises in the east and sets in the west. It is the course that God created it to travel from the east to the west. You will never, ever hear and never have heard of the sun rising in the west and setting in the east. If that were to happen, there's a lot of bad things that would take place in the earth, geographically and so psychologically as well. But the point I'm making is these laws exist and they continue to exist and will continue to do so. So I told you then that the human eye can only perceive or can see at a 0.0035% of the electromagnetic spectrum. So you're not seeing everything that is actually there. So that means that you have the prerogative and the right to say, while things look negative right now, looks like I'm going down for the count, you get to choose whether or not you believe what it is that you see. Now, I'm not saying that you become some weirdo. I mean, if you're behind in your bills, you obviously have to pay your bills. I'm not saying you can't say, I'm not behind in my bill, I'm not behind my bills, and don't go and pay your bills because your lights will soon be turned off. But what I am saying is where it concerns your potential. Your potential is always at a higher level than what you're actually perceiving with your natural eyes. It's never as bad as you think it is. It's never as bad because there's always something better. There's always going to be something better for you. Everything that you go through in life, in my opinion, this is one of my points of views. I've gathered this attitude based on the scripture that says that Romans 8:18, one of my favorite verses of scripture, talks about, I reckon that the sufferings of this present time are not worthy to be compared to the glory that shall be revealed in us. Now, that glory that it's speaking of is defined as the full expression. I mean, in the full expression. The full expression of a tadpole is a frog, right? The full expression of a caterpillar is a butterfly, right? So when it talks about what you're going through, it's nothing compared to what's going to be revealed in you. There's a giant in you. But you just have to go through this momentary light affliction, this challenge, this trouble, this tribulation, because it's going to reveal what's actually in you. It's going to reveal the giant that is in you. And you know I'm right, because if you're like me, you've experienced some hard places that you felt like giving up. But there's something within you that rose to the occasion and said, I'm not going down for the count. I feel like it. I feel like throwing up my hands and giving up. But there's something within me. We call it internal fortitude. That says, I will not quit. I will not give up. No matter how hard things may be right now, no matter how challenging it might be right now, I'm not giving up. That's internal fortitude. Why? And you have the right to take that mindset, because again, you're only perceiving at a 0.035% of the electromagnetic spectrum, which means there's so much more than meets the eye. I choose to believe for the better. I choose to believe that things are working out for my good. No matter what I'm going through is actually preparing me for what I'm going to. Romans 8:18 again. The sufferings of this present time, yeah, it's a little uncomfortable. I don't like it. I don't wish it on my adversaries. But guess what? It's working for my good, to build something in me that otherwise would have lied dormant inside of me. If I had not gone through that, I would not be able to possess this. If I didn't go through this, I would not have been able to gain that. You get what I'm saying? This helped prepare me for that. In some sort of cosmic way, God allows tragedy, well, I won't say tragedy, but troubles. He allows trouble to come and tribulations and things. As long as it doesn't kill you, you have the potential to come out on top. As the saying goes, what doesn't kill me only makes me stronger. Well, there's some truth to that. There's some literal truth to the reality that everything you go through, given all things being equal, if you're not operating in ignorance, because if you're operating in ignorance concerning a particular experience in your life, then that means it's going to become cyclical. And then we're back at what I started this video off with. Those three words. It will affect your perception, that will affect your projection, and then your reception. Why? Because when your perception is off, it affects your projection. And your projection affects your reception. And based on what you receive, then it only reinforces your perception. See, I told you there are no good men in this world. And now because your perception is off, it affects your projection, which affects your reception. And when you receive negative men in your life, and then you again reinforce that reception, reinforces the idea that there's no good men in the earth, and then you begin to project that same energy again that causes you to meet the next guy who's just as bad as the last guy, and then that reinforces your perception, which impacts your projection, which impacts your reception, and then your reception reinforces your perception, which impacts your projection. And you see, it's just cyclical. It creates cycles. So in order to break the cycle, you have to change your perception. No matter how real it might feel, no matter how it might feel in your world, The truth of the matter is you have the power to change it. Because again, it's the way God's designed the world. That if you plant a seed in the ground, you will get a harvest. Whether you are a saint or a sinner. Okay? It doesn't matter whether you're good or bad, because the law of agriculture says plant the seed in the ground, water the seed, given enough time, you will get a harvest. And that's why evil people tend to succeed in life in their evil undertakings, because they're so given over to it. Their perception is almost as saying, the same as saying evil is good. It's good for me to take your money from you. It's good for me to scam you out of your retirement fund, because they're completely given over to that in their perception, which impacts their projection and which impacts their reception. So in the same sense, you have to have a positive perception that affects your positive projection, that impacts your positive reception. Your positive perception affects your positive projection, affects your positive reception, which again further enforces the positive perception. There's one other verse of scripture says, as a man thinketh. So the way you receive impacts the way that you think, potentially speaking. It can impact the way that you perceive based on how you receive. Most people believe that if I'm receiving bad news all the time, then I'm going to continue to receive bad news, which reinforces that negative perception, which impacts their projection, which ultimately impacts their reception, which goes to reinforce their perception. As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. So you can literally think your way out of your circumstances, good or bad. I hope you choose the good. You can think your way out. You can begin, and how do you do that? You think by, you transform your thought by transforming your words. You speak words that you hear that impacts the way that you think. And the way that you think impacts the way that you project. Or your perception impacts your projection. And then it impacts your reception, which again impacts how you think, which impacts your perception. And it all begins over and over again. So these three words are powerful. They will absolutely transform your life. It takes work. It takes practice. This is not magic. It's not hocus pocus, but it will transform your life given enough time, given enough practice. You have to practice it. You have to rehearse it. And one of the things I always say is begin to rehearse the way you will respond when you get the answered prayers, or the new job, or the promotion, or the money. Act and take on that state of mind now. Don't wait until you see it, because you're only, once again, you're only seeing it as 0.0035% of what actually exists in the electromagnetic spectrum. So again, there's so much more than meets the eye. So choose to believe for the best. Choose to speak only words that affirm and encourages and empower. Because again, it's not what goes in a man's mouth that defiles him. It's what comes out of his mouth that defiles him. So you have the potential to transform your own life by your own words. So say good words about yourself. Get in the mirror and begin to practice. Talk to yourself. Because again, the only words that have real impact on your life are your words. Okay? All right, listen, there's so much more. I want to invite you to check out my website at michaelnormanministries.com. The link is in the description so that you can subscribe to what I call the Wisdom Blueprint. It is a monthly upload every month. I upload new videos, concepts, and tools and tips and techniques that you can use to empower your life so that you can experience maximum life now, the abundant life. So I want you to go to michaelnormanministries.com, michaelnormanministries.com, sign up. No contract necessary. Cancel at any time. But these videos and these uploads are going to be powerful in assisting you to change your perception so that you can change your projection, which will transform your reception. I've seen it happen in my life, and it will happen for you as well. All right? So I can't wait to share this time with you. Until next time, make sure that you click the subscription button if you haven't done so. And if this has blessed you, share with your friends. Okay, click the share button and the notification button so that you will know. And of course, a thumbs up if you like this video. All right, we'll see you next time right here on Maximum Life, Abundant Life. Life abundantly. All right, we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.